Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.
A few months ago, I was sitting in a dugout playing scat. After a while, I stood up and went to visit some friends in another dugout. On my return, nothing more was to be seen of the first one. It had been blown to pieces by a direct hit. I went back to the second and arrived just in time to lend a hand, digging it out. In the interval, it had been buried. It is just as much a matter of chance that I am still alive as that I might have been hit. In a bomb-proof dugout, I may be smashed to atoms, and in the open may survive 10 hours bombardment unscathed. No soldier outlives 1,000 chances, but every soldier believes in chance and trusts his luck. We must look out for our bread. The rats have become much more numerous lately because the trenches are no longer in good condition. Deterring says it is a sure sign of a coming bombardment. The rats here are particularly repulsive. They are so fat, the kind we all call corpse rats. They have shocking, evil, naked faces, and it is nauseating to see their long, nude tails. They seem to be mighty hungry. Almost every man has had his bread gnawed. Krop wrapped his in his waterproof sheet and put it under his head, but he cannot sleep because they run over his face to get at it. Deterring meant to outwit them. He fastened a thin wire to the roof and suspended his bread from it. During the night, when he switched on his pocket torch, he saw the wire swing to and fro. On the bread was riding a fat rat. At last, we put a stop to it. We cannot afford to throw the bread away, because then we should have nothing left to eat in the morning, so we carefully cut off the bits of bread that the animals have gnawed. The slices we cut off are heaped together in the middle of the floor. Each man takes out his spade and lies down prepared to strike. Deterring, Krop, and Cat hold their pocket torches ready. After a few minutes we hear the first shuffling and tugging. It grows. Now it is the sound of many little feet. Then the torches switch on and every man strikes at the heap, which scatters with a rush. The result is good. We toss the bits of rat over the parapet and again lie in wait. Several times we repeat the process. At last the beasts get wise to it, or perhaps they have scented the blood. They return no more. Nevertheless, before morning the remainder of the bread on the floor has been carried off. In the adjoining sector they attacked 2 large cats and a dog, bit them to death and devoured them. Next day there was an issue of Edamame cheese. Each man gets almost a quarter of a cheese. In one way that is all to the good, for Edamame is tasty, but in another way it is vile, because the fat red balls have long been a sign of a bad time coming. Our forebodings increase as rum is served out. We drink it, of course, but are not greatly comforted. During the day, we loaf about and make war on the rats. Ammunition and hand grenades become more plentiful. We overhaul the bayonets, that is to say, the ones that have a saw on the blunt edge. If the fellows over there catch a man with one of those, he's killed at sight. In the next sector, some of our men were found whose noses were cut off and their eyes poked out with their own saw bayonets. Their mouths and noses were stuffed with sawdust so that they suffocated. Some of the recruits have bayonets of this sort. We take them away and give them the ordinary kind. But the bayonet has practically lost its importance. It is usually the fashion now to charge with bombs and spades only. The sharpened spade is a more handy and many-sided weapon. Not only can it be used for jabbing a man under the chin, but it is much better for striking with because of its greater weight. And if one hits between the neck and shoulder, it easily cleaves as far down as the chest. The bayonet frequently jams on the thrust, and then a man has to kick hard on the other fellow's belly to pull it out again. And in the interval, he may easily get one himself. And what's more, the blade often gets broken off. At night, they send over gas. We expect the attack to follow and lie with our masks on, ready to tear them off as soon as the first shadow appears. Dawn approaches without anything happening, only the everlasting nerve-wracking roll behind the enemy lines. Trains, trains, lorries, lorries. But what are they concentrating? Our artillery fires on it continually, but still it does not cease. We have tired faces and avoid each other's eyes. It will be like the Somme, says Kat gloomily. There we were shelled steadily for 7 days and nights. Kat has lost all his fun since we have been here, which is bad, for Kat is an old front hog and can smell what is coming. Only Tjarden seems pleased with the good rations and the rum. He thinks we might even go back to rest without anything happening at all. It almost looks like it. Day after day passes. At night I squat in the listening post. Above me the rockets and parachute lights shoot up and float down again. I am cautious and tense. My heart thumps. My eyes turn again and again to the luminous dial of my watch. The hands will not budge. Sleep hangs on my eyelids. I work my toes in my boots in order to keep awake. Nothing happens till I am relieved, only the everlasting rolling over there. Gradually, we grow calmer and play scat and poker continually. Perhaps we will be lucky. All day the sky is hung with observation balloons. There is a rumor that the enemy are going to put tanks over and use low-flying planes for the attack. But that interests us less than what we hear of the new flamethrowers. We wake up in the middle of the night. The earth booms. Heavy fire is falling on us. We crouch into corners. We distinguish shells of every caliber. Each man lays hold of his things and looks again every minute to reassure himself that they are still there. The dugout heaves, the night roars and flashes. We look at each other in the momentary flashes of light, and with pale faces and pressed lips shake our heads. Every man is aware of the heavy shells tearing down the parapet, rooting up the embankment and demolishing the upper layers of concrete. When a shell lands in the trench, we note how the hollow, furious blast is like a blow from the paw of a raging beast of prey. Already by morning, a few of the recruits are green and vomiting. They are too inexperienced. Slowly the grey light trickles into the post and pales the flashes of the shells. Morning is come. The explosion of mines mingles with the gunfire. That is the most dementing convulsion of all. The whole region where they go up becomes one grave. The reliefs go out, the observers stagger in, covered with dirt and trembling. One lies down in silence in the corner and eats. The other, an older man of the new draft, sobs. Twice he has been flung over the parapet by the blast of the explosions without getting any more than shell shock. The recruits are eyeing him. We must watch them. These things are catching. Already some lips begin to quiver. It is good that it is growing daylight. Perhaps the attack will come before noon. The bombardment does not diminish. It is falling in the rear too. As far as one can see spout fountains of mud and iron. A wide belt is being raked. The attack does not come, but the bombardment continues. We are gradually benumbed. Hardly a man speaks. We cannot make ourselves understood. Our trench is almost gone. At many places it is only 18 inches high. It is broken by holes and craters and mountains of earth. A shell lands square in front of our post. At once it is dark. We are buried and must dig ourselves out. After an hour the entrance is clear again, and we are calmer because we have had something to do. Our company commander scrambles in and reports that 2 dugouts are gone. The recruits calm themselves when they see him. He says that an attempt will be made to bring up food this evening. That sounds reassuring. No one had thought of it except Tjarden. Now the outside world seems to draw a little nearer. If food can be brought up, think the recruits, then it can't really be so bad. We do not disabuse them. We know that food is as important as ammunition, and only for that reason must be brought up. But it miscarries. A second party goes out, and it also turns back. Finally, Cat tries, and even he reappears without accomplishing anything. No one gets through. Not even a fly is small enough to get through such a barrage. We pull in our belts tighter and chew every mouthful 3 times as long. Still, the food does not last out. We are damnably hungry. I take out a scrap of bread, eat the white and put the crust back in my knapsack. From time to time, I nibble at it. The night is unbearable. We cannot sleep, but stare ahead of us and doze. Tjaden regrets that we wasted the gnawed pieces of bread on the rats. We would gladly have them again to eat now. We are short of water too, but not seriously yet. Towards morning, while it is still dark, there is some excitement. Through the entrance rushes in a swarm of fleeing rats that try to storm the walls. Torches light up the confusion. Everyone yells and curses and slaughters. The madness and despair of many hours unloads itself in this outburst. Faces are distorted, arms strike out, the beasts scream. We just stop in time to avoid attacking one another. The onslaught has exhausted us. We lie down to wait again. It is a marvel that our post has had no casualties so far. It is one of the less deep dugouts. A corporal creeps in. He has a loaf of bread with him. 3 people have had the luck to get through during the night and bring some provisions. They say the bombardment extends undiminished as far as the artillery lines. It is a mystery where the enemy gets all his shells. We wait and wait. By midday, what I expected happens. One of the recruits has a fit. I have been watching him for a long time, grinding his teeth and opening and shutting his fists. These hunted, protruding eyes, we know them too well. During the last few hours, he has had merely the appearance of calm. He had collapsed like a rotten tree. Now he stands up, stealthily creeps across the floor, hesitates a moment and then glides towards the door. I intercept him and say, "Where are you going?" "I'll be back in a minute," says he, and tries to push past me. "Wait a bit, the shelling will stop soon." He listens for a moment and his eyes become clear. Then again he has the glowering eyes of a mad dog. He is silent. He shoves me aside. "1 minute, lad," I say. Cat notices. Just as the recruit shakes me off, Cat jumps in and we hold him. Then he begins to rave. "Leave me alone. Let me go out. I will go out." He won't listen to anything and hits out. His mouth is wet and pours out words, half-choked, meaningless words. It is a case of claustrophobia. He feels as though he is suffocating here and wants to get out at any price. If we let him go, he would run about everywhere regardless of cover. He is not the first. Though he raves and his eyes roll, it can't be helped. We have to give him a hiding to bring him to his senses. We do it quickly and mercilessly, and at last he sits down quietly. The others have turned pale. Let's hope it deters them. This bombardment is too much for the poor devils. They have been sent straight from a recruiting depot into a barrage that is enough to turn an old soldier's hair grey. After this affair, the sticky, close atmosphere works more than ever on our nerves. We sit as if in our graves, waiting only to be closed in. Suddenly it howls and flashes terrifically. The dugout cracks in all its joints under a direct hit. Fortunately, only a light one that the concrete blocks are able to withstand. It rings metallically. The walls reel, rifles, helmets, earth, mud, and dust fly everywhere. Sulfur fumes pour in. If we were in one of those light dugouts that they have been building lately instead of this deeper one, none of us would be alive. But the effect is bad enough even so. The recruit starts to rave again, and 2 others follow suit. One jumps up and rushes out. We have trouble with the other 2. I start after the one who escapes and wonder whether to shoot him in the leg. Then it shrieks again. I fling myself down, and when I stand up, the wall of the trench is plastered with smoking splinters, lumps of flesh, and bits of uniform. I scramble back. The first recruit seems actually to have gone insane. He butts his head against the wall like a goat. We must try tonight to take him to the rear. Meanwhile, we bind him, but in such a way that in case of attack he can be released at once. Cat suggests a game of scat. It is easier when a man has something to do. But it is no use. We listen for every explosion that comes close, miscount the tricks, and fail to follow suit. We have to give it up. We sit as though in a boiler that is being belaboured from without on all sides. Night again. We are deadened by the strain, a deadly tension that scrapes along one's spine like a gapped knife. Our legs refuse to move. Our hands tremble. Our bodies are a thin skin stretched painfully over repressed madness, over an almost irresistible, bursting roar. We have neither flesh nor muscles any longer. We dare not look at one another for fear of some incalculable thing. So we shut our teeth. It will end. It will end. Perhaps we will come through. Suddenly the nearer explosions cease. The shelling continues, but it has lifted and falls behind us. Our trench is free. We seize the hand grenades, pitch them out in front of the dugout and jump after them. The bombardment has stopped, and a heavy barrage now falls behind us. The attack has come. No one would believe that in this howling waste there could still be men. But steel helmets now appear on all sides out of the trench, and 50 yards from us, a machine gun is already in position and barking. The wire entanglements are torn to pieces, yet they offer some obstacle. We see the stormtroops coming. Our artillery opens fire. Machine guns rattle, rifles crack. The charge works its way across. High and Crop begin with the hand grenades. They throw as fast as they can. Others pass them, the handles with the strings already pulled. High throws 75 yards, Crop 60. It has been measured. The distance is important. The enemy, as they run, cannot do much before they are within 40 yards. We recognize the smooth, distorted faces, the helmets. They are French. They have already suffered heavily when they reach the remnants of the barbed wire entanglements. A whole line has gone down before our machine guns. Then we have a lot of stoppages, and they come nearer. I see one of them, his face upturned, fall into a wire cradle. His body collapses. His hands remain suspended, as though he were praying. Then his body drops clean away, and only his hands with the stumps of his arms, shot off, now hang in the wire. The moment we are about to retreat, 3 faces rise up from the ground in front of us. Under one of the helmets, a dark pointed beard and 2 eyes that are fastened on me. I raise my hand, but I cannot throw into those strange eyes. For one mad moment, the whole slaughter whirls like a circus round me, and these 2 eyes alone are motionless. Then the head rises up. A hand, a movement, and my hand grenade flies through the air and into him. We make for the rear, pull wire cradles into the trench and leave bombs behind us with the strings pulled, which ensures us a fiery retreat. The machine guns are already firing from the next position. We have become wild beasts. We do not fight. We defend ourselves against annihilation. It is not against men that we fling our bombs. What do we know of men in this moment when death is hunting us down? Now for the first time in 3 days we can see his face. Now for the first time in 3 days we can oppose him. We feel a mad anger. No longer do we lie helpless, waiting on the scaffold. We can destroy and kill. To save ourselves. To save ourselves, and to be revenged. We crouch behind every corner, behind every barrier of barbed wire, and hurl heaps of explosives at the feet of the advancing enemy before we run. The blast of the hand grenades impinges powerfully on our arms and legs. Crouching like cats, we run on, overwhelmed by this wave that bears us along, that fills us with ferocity, turns us into thugs, into murderers, into God only knows what devils. This wave that multiplies our strength with fear and madness and greed of life, seeking and fighting for nothing but our deliverance. If your own father came over with them, you would not hesitate to fling a bomb at him. The forward trenches have been abandoned. Are they still trenches? They are blown to pieces, annihilated. There are only broken bits of trenches, holes linked by cracks, nests of craters, that is all. But the enemy's casualties increase. They did not count on so much resistance. It is nearly noon. The sun blazes hotly. The sweat stings in our eyes. We wipe it off on our sleeves, and often blood with it. At last we reach a trench that is in a somewhat better condition. It is manned and ready for the counterattack. It receives us. Our guns open in full blast and cut off the enemy attack. The lines behind us stop. They can advance no farther. The attack is crushed by our artillery. We watch. The fire lifts 100 yards and we break forward. Beside me, a lance corporal has his head torn off. He runs a few steps more while the blood spouts from his neck like a fountain. It does not come quite to hand-to-hand fighting. They are driven back. We arrive once again at our shattered trench and pass on beyond it. Oh, this turning back again. We reach the shelter of the reserves and yearn to creep in and disappear, but instead we must turn round and plunge again into the horror. If we were not automata at that moment, we would continue lying there, exhausted and without will. But we are swept forward again, powerless, madly savage and raging. We will kill, for they are still our mortal enemies. Their rifles and bombs are aimed against us, and if we don't destroy them, they will destroy us. The brown earth, the torn, blasted earth, with a greasy shine under the sun's rays. The earth is the background of this restless, gloomy world of automatons. Our gasping is the scratching of a quill. Our lips are dry, our heads are debauched with stupor. Thus we stagger forward, and into our pierced and shattered souls bores the torturing image of the brown earth with the greasy sun and the convulsed and dead soldiers who lie there, it can't be helped, who cry and clutch at our legs as we spring away over them. We have lost all feeling for one another. We can hardly control ourselves when our glance lights on the form of some other man. We are insensible dead men who through some trick, some dreadful magic, are still able to run and to kill. A young Frenchman lags behind. He is overtaken. He puts up his hands. In one, he still holds his revolver. Does he mean to shoot or to give himself? A blow from a spade cleaves through his face. A second sees it and tries to run farther. A bayonet jabs into his back. He leaps in the air, his arms thrown wide, his mouth wide open, yelling. He staggers. In his back the bayonet quivers. A third throws away his rifle, cowers down with his hands before his eyes. He is left behind with a few other prisoners to carry off the wounded. Suddenly, in the pursuit, we reach the enemy line. We are so close on the heels of our retreating enemies that we reach it almost at the same time as they. In this way, we suffer few casualties. A machine gun barks, but is silenced with a bomb. Nevertheless, the couple of seconds has sufficed to give us 5 stomach wounds. With the butt of his rifle, Cat smashes to pulp the face of one of the unwounded machine gunners. We bayonet the others before they have time to get out their bombs. Then, thirstily, we drink the water they have for cooling the gun. Everywhere, wire cutters are snapping, planks are thrown across the entanglements. We jump through the narrow entrances into the trenches. High strikes his spade into the neck of a gigantic Frenchman and throws the first hand grenade. We duck behind a breastwork for a few seconds, then the straight bit of trench ahead of us is empty. The next throw whizzes obliquely over the corner and clears a passage. As we run past, we toss handfuls down into the dugouts. The earth shudders, it crashes, smokes and groans. We stumble over slippery lumps of flesh, over yielding bodies. I fall into an open belly on which lies a clean new officer's cap. The fight ceases. We lose touch with the enemy. We cannot stay here long but must retire under cover of our artillery to our own position. No sooner do we know this than we dive into the nearest dugouts, and with the utmost haste seize on whatever provisions we can see, especially the tins of corned beef and butter before we clear out. We get back pretty well. There is no further attack by the enemy. We lie for an hour panting and resting before anyone speaks. We are so completely played out that in spite of our great hunger we do not think of the provisions. Then gradually we become something like men again. The corned beef over there is famous along the whole front. Occasionally it has been the chief reason for a flying raid on our part, for our nourishment is generally very bad. We have a constant hunger. We bagged 5 tins altogether. The fellows over there are well looked after. They fare magnificently. As against us, poor starving wretches with our turnip jam, they can get all the meat they want. High has scored a thin loaf of white French bread and stuck it in behind his belt like a spade. It is a bit bloody at one corner, but that can be cut off. It is a good thing we have something decent to eat at last. We still have a use for all our strength. Enough to eat is just as valuable as a good dugout. It can save our lives. That is the reason we are so greedy for it. Tjaden has captured 2 water bottles full of cognac. We pass them round. The evening benediction begins. Night comes. Out of the craters rise the mists. It looks as though the holes were full of ghostly secrets. The white vapour creeps painfully round before it ventures to steal away over the edge. Then long streaks stretch from crater to crater. It is chilly. I am on sentry and stare into the darkness. My strength is exhausted as always after an attack, and so it is hard for me to be alone with my thoughts. They are not properly thoughts. They are memories which in my weakness haunt me and strangely move me. The parachute lights soar upwards and I see a picture, a summer evening. I am in the cathedral cloister and look at the tall rose trees that bloom in the middle of the little cloister garden where the monks lie buried. Around the walls are the stone carvings of the Stations of the Cross. No one is there. A great quietness rules in this blossoming quadrangle. The sun lies warm on the heavy grey stones. I place my hand upon them and feel the warmth. At the right-hand corner, the green cathedral spire ascends into the pale blue sky of the evening. Between the glowing columns of the cloister is the cool darkness that only churches have, and I stand there and wonder whether, when I am 20, I shall have experienced the bewildering emotions of love. The image is alarmingly near. It touches me before it dissolves in the light of the next star shell. I lay hold of my rifle to see that it is in trim. The barrel is wet. I take it in my hands and rub off the moisture with my fingers. Between the meadows behind our town there stands a line of old poplars by a stream. They were visible from a great distance, and although they grew on one bank only, we called them the Poplar Avenue. Even as children we had a great love for them. They drew us vaguely thither. We played truant the whole day by them and listened to their rustling. We sat beneath them on the bank of the stream and let our feet hang in the bright, swift waters. The pure fragrance of the water and the melody of the wind in the poplars held our fancies. We loved them dearly, and the image of those days still makes my heart pause in its beating. It is strange that all the memories that come have these 2 qualities. They are always completely calm, that is predominant in them, and even if they are not really calm, they become so. They are soundless apparitions that speak to me, with looks and gestures silently, without any word, and it is the alarm of their silence that forces me to lay hold of my sleeve and my rifle, lest I should abandon myself to the liberation and allurement in which my body would dilate and gently pass away into the still forces that lie behind these things. They are quiet in this way, because quietness is so unattainable for us now. At the front there is no quietness, and the curse of the front reaches so far that we never pass beyond it. Even in the remote depots and rest areas, the droning and the muffled noise of shelling is always in our ears. We are never so far off that it is no more to be heard. But these last few days it has been unbearable. Their stillness is the reason why these memories of former times do not awaken desire so much as sorrow. A vast, inapprehensible melancholy. Once we had such desires, but they return not. They are past. They belong to another world that is gone from us. In the barracks they called forth a rebellious, wild craving for their return. For then they were still bound to us, we belonged to them, and they to us, even though we were already absent from them. They appeared in the soldiers' songs which we sang as we marched between the glow of the dawn and the black silhouettes of the forests to drill on the moor. They were a powerful remembrance that was in us and came from us. But here in the trenches they are completely lost to us. They arise no more. We are dead, and they stand remote on the horizon. They are a mysterious reflection, an apparition that haunts us, that we fear and love without hope. They are strong and our desire is strong, but they are unattainable, and we know it. And even if these scenes of our youth were given back to us, we would hardly know what to do. The tender, secret influence that passed from them into us could not rise again. We might be amongst them and move in them. We might remember and love them and be stirred by the sight of them. But it would be like gazing at the photograph of a dead comrade. Those are his features. It is his face. And the days we spent together take on a mournful life in the memory. But the man himself it is not. We could never regain the old intimacy with those scenes. It was not any recognition of their beauty and their significance that attracted us, but the communion, the feeling of a comradeship with the things and events of our existence, which cut us off and made the world of our parents a thing incomprehensible to us. For then we surrendered ourselves to events and were lost in them, and the least little thing was enough to carry us down the stream of eternity. Perhaps it was only the privilege of our youth, but as yet we recognized no limits and saw nowhere an end. We had that thrill of expectation in the blood which united us with the course of our days. Today we would pass through the scenes of our youth like travelers. We are burnt up by hard facts. Like tradesmen, we understand distinctions, and like butchers, necessities. We are no longer untroubled. We are indifferent. We might exist there, but should we really live there? We are forlorn like children and experienced like old men. We are crude and sorrowful and superficial. I believe we are lost. My hands grow cold and my flesh creeps, and yet the night is warm. Only the mist is cold, this mysterious mist that trails over the dead and sucks from them their last, creeping life. By morning they will be pale and green, and their blood congealed and black. Still the parachute rockets shoot up and cast their pitiless light over the stony landscape, which is full of craters and frozen lights like a moon. The blood beneath my skin brings fear and restlessness into my thoughts. They become feeble and tremble. They want warmth and life. They cannot persist without solace, without illusion. They are disordered before the naked picture of despair. I hear the rattle of the mess tins, and immediately feel a strong desire for warm food. It would do me good and comfort me. Painfully, I force myself to wait until I'm relieved. Then I go into the dugout and find a mug of barley. It is cooked in fat and tastes good. I eat it slowly. I remain quiet, though the others are in a better mood, for the shelling has died down. The days go by and the incredible hours follow one another as a matter of course. Attacks alternate with counterattacks, and slowly the dead pile up in the field of craters between the trenches. We are able to bring in most of the wounded that do not lie too far off. But many have long to wait, and we listen to them dying. For one of them, we searched 2 days in vain. He must be lying on his belly and unable to turn over. Otherwise, it is hard to understand why we cannot find him. For it is only when a man has his mouth close to the ground that it is impossible to gauge the direction of his cry. He must have been badly hit, one of those nasty wounds, neither so severe that they exhaust the body at once, and a man dreams on in a half-swoon, nor so light that a man endures the pain in the hope of becoming well again. Cat thinks he has either a broken pelvis or a shot through the spine. His chest cannot have been injured, otherwise he would not have such strength to cry out. And if it were any other kind of wound, it would be possible to see him moving. He grows gradually hoarser. The voice is so strangely pitched that it seems to be everywhere. The first night some of our fellows go out 3 times to look for him. But when they think they have located him and crawl across, next time they hear the voice it seems to come from somewhere else altogether. We search in vain until dawn. We scrutinize the field all day with glasses, but discover nothing. On the second day, the calls are fainter. That will be because his lips and mouth have become dry. Our company commander has promised next turn of leave with 3 days extra to anyone who finds him. That is a powerful inducement, but we would do all that is possible without that, for his cry is terrible. Cat and Crop even go out in the afternoon, and Albert gets the lobe of his ear shot off in consequence. It is to no purpose. They come back without him. It is easy to understand what he cries. At first he called only for help. The second night he must have had some delirium. He talked with his wife and his children. We often detected the name Elise. Today he merely weeps. By evening the voice dwindles to a croaking, but it persists still through the whole night. We hear it so distinctly because the wind blows toward our line. In the morning, when we suppose he must already have long gone to his rest, there comes across to us one last gurgling rattle. The days are hot, and the dead lie unburied. We cannot fetch them all in. If we did, we should not know what to do with them. The shells will bury them. Many have their bellies swollen up like balloons. They hiss, belch, and make movements. The gases in them make noises. The sky is blue and without clouds. In the evening it grows sultry and the heat rises from the earth. When the wind blows toward us, it brings the smell of blood, which is very heavy and sweet. This deathly exhalation from the shell holes seems to be a mixture of chloroform and putrefaction and fills us with nausea and retching. The nights become quiet, and the hunt for copper driving bands and the silken parachutes of the French star shells begins. Why the driving bands are so desirable, no one knows exactly. The collectors merely assert that they are valuable. Some have collected so many that they will stoop under the weight of them when we go back. But Haye at least gives a reason. He intends to give them to his girl to supplement her garters. At this, the Frisians explode with mirth. They slap their knees. By Jove, though, he's a wit, Haye is. He's got brains. Tjaden especially can hardly contain himself. He takes the largest of the rings in his hand and every now and then puts his leg through it to show how much slack there is. Haye, man, she must have legs like... Legs, his thoughts mount somewhat higher. And a behind, too, she must have like an elephant. He cannot get over it. I wish I could play hot hand with her once, my hat. Haye beams, proud that his girl should receive so much appreciation. She's a nice bit, he says with self-satisfaction. The parachutes are turned to more practical uses. According to the size of the bust, 3 or perhaps 4 will make a blouse. Crop and I use them as handkerchiefs. The others send them home. If the women could see at what risk these bits of rag are often obtained, they would be horrified. Cat surprises Tjaden, endeavouring with perfect equanimity to knock the driving band off a dud. If anyone else had tried it, the thing would have exploded, but Tjaden always has his luck with him. One morning, 2 butterflies play in front of our trench. They are brimstone butterflies, with red spots on their yellow wings. What can they be looking for here? There is not a plant nor a flower for miles. They settle on the teeth of a skull. The birds, too, are just as carefree. They have long since accustomed themselves to the war. Every morning, larks ascend from no man's land. A year ago we watched them nesting. The young ones grew up too. We have a spell from the rats in the trench. They are in no man's land. We know what for. They grow fat. When we see one, we have a crack at it. At night we hear again the rolling behind the enemy lines. All day we have only the normal shelling, so that we are able to repair the trenches. There is always plenty of amusement, the airmen see to that. There are countless fights for us to watch every day. Battle planes don't trouble us, but the observation planes we hate like the plague. They put the artillery onto us. A few minutes after they appear, shrapnel and high explosives begin to drop on us. We lose 11 men in one day that way, and 5 of them stretcher bearers. 2 are smashed, so that Tjaden remarks you could scrape them off the wall of the trench with a spoon and bury them in a mess tin. Another has the lower part of his body and his legs torn off. Dead, his chest leans against the side of the trench, His face is lemon yellow, in his beard still burns a cigarette. It glows until it dies out on his lips. We put the dead in a large shell hole. So far there are 3 layers, one on top of the other. Suddenly the shelling begins to pound again. Soon we are sitting up once more with the rigid tenseness of blank anticipation. Attack, counterattack, charge, repulse. These are words, but what things they signify. We have lost a good many men, mostly recruits. Reinforcements have again been sent up to our sector. They are one of the new regiments, composed almost entirely of young fellows just called up. They have had hardly any training and are sent into the field with only a theoretical knowledge. They do know what a hand grenade is, it is true, but they have very little idea of cover, and what is most important of all, have no eye for it. A fold in the ground has to be quite 18 inches high before they can see it. Although we need reinforcement, the recruits give us almost more trouble than they are worth. They are helpless in this grim fighting area. They fall like flies. Modern trench warfare demands knowledge and experience. A man must have a feeling for the contours of the ground, an ear for the sound and character of the shells, must be able to decide beforehand where they will drop, how they will burst, and how to shelter from them. The young recruits, of course, know none of these things. They get killed simply because they hardly can tell shrapnel from high explosive. They are mown down because they are listening anxiously to the roar of the big coal boxes falling in the rear, and miss the light, piping whistle of the low, spreading daisy cutters. They flock together like sheep instead of scattering, and even the wounded are shot down like hares by the airmen. Their pale turnip faces, their pitiful clenched hands, the fine courage of these poor devils, the desperate charges and attacks made by the poor brave wretches, who are so terrified that they dare not cry out loudly but with battered chests, with torn bellies, arms and legs only whimper softly for their mothers, and cease as soon as one looks at them. Their sharp, downy, dead faces have the awful expressionlessness of dead children. It brings a lump into the throat to see how they go over, and run and fall. A man would like to spank them, they are so stupid, and to take them by the arm and lead them away from here where they have no business to be. They wear grey coats and trousers and boots. But for most of them, the uniform is far too big. It hangs on their limbs, their shoulders are too narrow, their bodies too slight. No uniform was ever made to these childish measurements. Between 5 and 10 recruits fall to every old hand. A surprise gas attack carries off a lot of them. They have not yet learned what to do. We found one dugout full of them, with blue heads and black lips. Some of them, in a shell hole, took off their masks too soon. They did not know that the gas lies longest in the hollows. When they saw others on top without masks, they pulled theirs off too, and swallowed enough to scorch their lungs. Their condition is hopeless. They choke to death with hemorrhages and suffocation. In one part of the trench, I suddenly run into Himmelstoss. We dive into the same dugout. Breathless, we are all lying one beside the other, waiting for the charge. When we run out again, although I am very excited, I suddenly think, where's Himmelstoss? Quickly I jump back into the dugout and find him with a small scratch lying in a corner, pretending to be wounded. His face looks sullen. He is in a panic. He is new to it too. But it makes me mad that the young recruits should be out there and he here. Get out, I spit. He does not stir. His lips quiver. His moustache twitches. Out, I repeat. He draws up his legs, crouches back against the wall, and shows his teeth like a cur. I seize him by the arm and try to pull him up. He barks. That is too much for me. I grab him by the neck and shake him like a sack. His head jerks from side to side. You lump. Will you get out, you hound, you skunk? Sneak out of it, would you? His eye becomes glassy. I knock his head against the wall. You cow! I kick him in the ribs. You swine! I push him toward the door and shove him out head first. Another wave of our attack has just come up. A lieutenant is with them. He sees us and yells, Forward! Forward! Join in! Follow! And the word of command does what all my banging could not. Himmelstoss hears the order, looks round him as if awakened, and follows on. I come after and watch him go over. Once more he is the smart Himmelstoss of the parade ground. He has even outstripped the lieutenant and is far ahead. Bombardment, barrage, curtain fire, mines, gas, tanks, machine guns, hand grenades, words, but they hold the horror of the world. Our faces are encrusted, our thoughts are devastated, we are weary to death. When the attack comes, we shall have to strike many of the men with our fists to waken them and make them come with us. Our eyes are burnt, our hands are torn, our knees bleed, our elbows are raw. How long has it been? Weeks, months, years, only days. We see time pass in the colourless faces of the dying. We cram food into us, we run, we throw, we shoot, we kill, we lie about, we are feeble and spent. And nothing supports us but the knowledge that there are still feebler, still more spent, still more helpless ones there, who, with staring eyes, look upon us as gods that escape death many times. In the few hours of rest, we teach them. There, see that waggle top? That's a mortar coming. Keep down, it will go clean over. But if it comes this way, then run for it. You can run from a mortar. We sharpen their ears to the malicious, hardly audible buzz of the smaller shells that are not easily distinguishable. They must pick them out from the general din by their insect-like hum. We explain to them that these are far more dangerous than the big ones that can be heard long beforehand. We show them how to take cover from aircraft, how to simulate a dead man when one is overrun in an attack, how to time hand grenades so that they explode half a second before hitting the ground. We teach them to fling themselves into holes as quick as lightning before the shells with instantaneous fuses. We show them how to clean up a trench with a handful of bombs. We explain the difference between the fuse length of the enemy bombs and our own. We put them wise to the sound of gas shells. Show them all the tricks that can save them from death. They listen, they are docile. But when it begins again, in their excitement, they do everything wrong. Haie Westus drags off with a great wound in his back, through which the lung pulses at every breath. I can only press his hand. It's all up, Paul. He groans and he bites his arm because of the pain. We see men living with their skulls blown open. We see soldiers run with their 2 feet cut off. They stagger on their splintered stumps into the next shell hole. A lance corporal crawls 1.5 miles on his hands, dragging his smashed knee after him. Another goes to the dressing station and over his clasped hands bulge his intestines. We see men without mouths, without jaws, without faces. We find one man who has held the artery of his arm in his teeth for 2 hours in order not to bleed to death. The sun goes down, night comes. The shells whine, life is at an end. Still the little piece of convulsed earth in which we lie is held. We have yielded no more than a few hundred yards of it as a prize to the enemy, but on every yard there lies a dead man. We have just been relieved. The wheels roll beneath us. We stand dully, and when the call, mind wire, comes, we bend our knees. It was summer when we came up. The trees were still green. Now it is autumn, and the night is grey and wet. The lorries stop, we climb out, a confused heap, a remnant of many names. On either side stand people, dark, calling out the numbers of the brigades, the battalions. And at each call, a little group separates itself off, a small handful of dirty, pallid soldiers, a dreadfully small handful, and a dreadfully small remnant. Now someone is calling the number of our company. It is, yes, the company commander. He has come through then. His arm is in a sling. We go over to him, and I recognize Kat and Albert. We stand together, lean against each other, and look at one another. And we hear the number of our company called again and again. He will call a long time. They do not hear him in the hospitals and shell holes. Once again, 2nd Company, this way. And then more softly, nobody else, 2nd Company. He is silent, and then huskily he says, "Is that all?" and gives the order. Number. The morning is grey. It was still summer when we came up, and we were 150 strong. Now we freeze. It is autumn. The leaves rustle. The voices flutter out wearily. 1, 2, 3, 4, and cease at 32. And there is a long silence before the voice asks, "Anyone else?" and waits and then says softly, "In squads," and then breaks off and is only able to finish, "Second company," with difficulty. "Second company, march easy." A short line trudges off into the morning. 32 men. Chapter 7. They have taken us farther back than usual to a field depot so that we can be reorganized. Our company needs more than 100 reinforcements. In the meantime, when we are off duty, we loaf around. After a couple of days, Himmelstoss comes up to us. He has had the bounce knocked out of him since he has been in the trenches and wants to get on good terms with us. I am willing because I saw how he brought Haie Westus in when he was hit in the back. Besides, he's decent enough to treat us in the canteen when we're out of funds. Only Tjaden is still reserved and suspicious. But he's won over too when Himmelstoss tells us that he's taking the place of the sergeant cook who has gone on leave. As a proof, he produces on the spot 2 pounds of sugar for us and a half pound of butter, specially for Tjaden. He even sees to it that we are detailed the next 2 or 3 days to the cookhouse for potato and turnip peeling. The grub he gives us there is real officer's fare. Thus, momentarily, we have the 2 things a soldier needs for contentment: good food and rest. That's not much when one comes to think of it. A few years ago, we would have despised ourselves terribly. But now we are almost happy. It is all a matter of habit, even the front line. Habit is the explanation of why we seem to forget things so quickly. Yesterday we were under fire. Today we act the fool and go foraging through the countryside. Tomorrow we go up to the trenches again. We forget nothing really. But so long as we have to stay here in the field, the front-line days, when they are past, sink down in us like a stone. They are too grievous for us to be able to reflect on them at once. If we did that, we should have been destroyed long ago. I soon found out this much. Terror can be endured so long as a man simply ducks. But it kills, if a man thinks about it. Just as we turn into animals when we go up to the line, because that is the only thing which brings us through safely, so we turn into wags and loafers when we are resting. We can do nothing else. It is a sheer necessity. We want to live at any price, so we cannot burden ourselves with feelings which, though they might be ornamental enough in peacetime, would be out of place here. Kemmerich is dead. Haie Westus is dying. They will have a job with Hans Kramer's body at the Judgment Day, piecing it together after a direct hit. Martins has no legs anymore. Meyer is dead. Max is dead. Bayer is dead. Hammerling is dead. There are 120 wounded men lying somewhere or other. It is a damnable business, but what has it to do with us now? We live. If it were possible for us to save them, then it would be seen how much we cared. We would have a shot at it though we went under ourselves. For we can be damned quixotic when we like. Fear we do not know much about. Terror of death, yes. But that is a different matter. That is physical. But our comrades are dead. We cannot help them. They have their rest. And who knows what is waiting for us? We will make ourselves comfortable and sleep, and eat as much as we can stuff into our bellies, and drink and smoke, so that hours are not wasted. Life is short. The terror of the front sinks deep down when we turn our backs upon it. We make grim, coarse jests about it. When a man dies, then we say he has nipped off his turd, and so we speak of everything. That keeps us from going mad. As long as we take it that way, we maintain our own resistance. But we do not forget. It's all rot that they put in the war news about the good humour of the troops, how they are arranging dances almost before they are out of the front line. We don't like that because we are in a good humour. We are in a good humour because otherwise we should go to pieces. Even so, we cannot hold out much longer. Our humour becomes more bitter every month. And this I know. All these things that now, while we are still in the war, sink down in us like a stone, after the war shall waken again, and then shall begin the disentanglement of life and death. The days, the weeks, the years out here shall come back again, and our dead comrades shall then stand up again and march with us. Our heads shall be clear, we shall have a purpose, and so we shall march, our dead comrades beside us, the years at the front behind us. Against whom? Against whom? Some time ago, there was an army theatre in these parts. Coloured posters of the performances are still sticking on a hoarding. With wide eyes, Krop and I stand in front of it. We can hardly credit that such things still exist. A girl in a light summer dress, with a red patent leather belt about her hips. She is standing with one hand on a railing, and with the other she holds a straw hat. She wears white stockings and white shoes, fine buckle shoes with high heels. Behind her smiles the blue sea with white horses. At the side is a bright bay. She is a lovely girl with a delicate nose, red lips, and slender legs. Wonderfully clean and well cared for, she certainly bathes twice a day, and never has any dirt under her nails. At most perhaps a bit of sand from the beach. Beside her stands a man in white trousers, a blue jacket and sailor's cap, but he interests us much less. The girl on the poster is a wonder to us. We have quite forgotten that there are such things, and even now we hardly believe our eyes. We have seen nothing like it for years, nothing like it for happiness, beauty, and joy. That is peacetime. That is as it should be. We feel excited. Just look at those thin shoes, though. She couldn't march many miles in those, I say. And then begin to feel silly. For it is absurd to stand in front of a picture like this and think of nothing but marching. How old would she be? Krop asks. About 22 at the most, I hazard. Then she would be older than us. She is not more than 17, let me tell you. It gives us goose flesh. That would be good, Albert. What do you think? He nods. I have some white trousers at home too. White trousers, say I. But a girl like that? We look askance at one another. There's not much to boast of here. 2 ragged, stained and dirty uniforms. It is hopeless to compete. So we proceed to tear the young man with the white trousers off the hoarding, taking care not to damage the girl. That is something toward it. We could go and get deloused anyway, Krop then suggests. I'm not very enthusiastic because it doesn't do one's clothes any good, and a man is lousy again inside 2 hours. But when we have considered the picture once more, I declare myself willing. I go even farther. We might see if we could get a clean shirt as well. Socks might be better, says Albert, not without reason. Yes, socks too, perhaps. Let's go and explore a bit. Then Lear and Tjaden stroll up. They look at the poster, and immediately the conversation becomes smutty. Lear was the first of our class to have intercourse, and he gave stirring details of it. After his fashion, he enjoys himself over the picture, and Tjaden supports him nobly. It does not distress us exactly. Who isn't smutty is no soldier. It merely does not suit us at the moment, so we edge away and march off to the delousing station with the same feeling as if it were a swell gentleman's outfitters. The houses in which we are billeted lie near the canal. On the other side of the canal there are ponds flanked with poplars. On the other side of the canal there are women too. The houses on our side have been abandoned. On the other side, though, one occasionally sees inhabitants. In the evening we go swimming. 3 women come strolling along the bank. They walk slowly and don't look away, although we have no bathing suits. Lear calls out to them. They laugh and stop to watch us. We fling remarks at them in broken French. Anything that comes into our heads, hastily and all jumbled together, anything to detain them. They are not specially wonderful pieces, but then where are such to be had about here? There is one slim little brunette. Her teeth gleam when she laughs. She has quick movements. Her dress swings loosely about her legs. Although the water is cold, We are very jovial and do our best to interest them so that they will stay. We try to make jokes and they answer with things we cannot understand. We laugh and beckon. Tjaden is more crafty. He runs into the house, gets a loaf of army bread and holds it up. That produces a great effect. They nod and beckon us to come over. But we don't dare to do that. It is forbidden to cross to the opposite bank. There are sentries on all the bridges. It's impossible without a pass. So we indicate that they should come over to us, but they shake their heads and point to the bridge. They are not allowed to pass either. They turn back and walk slowly down the canal, keeping along the towpath all the way. We accompany them swimming. After a few 100 yards, they turn off and point to a house that stands a little distance away among the trees and shrubbery. Lear asks if they live there. They laugh. Sure, that's their house. We call out to them that we would like to come sometime when the guards cannot see us. At night. Tonight. They raise their hands, put them together, rest their faces on them, and shut their eyes. They understand. The slim brunette does a two-step. The blonde girl twitters, "Bread, good." Eagerly, we assure them that we will bring some with us. And other tasty bits too. We roll our eyes and try to explain with our hands. Lear nearly drowns trying to demonstrate a sausage. If it were necessary, we would promise them a whole quartermaster's store. They go off and frequently turn and look back. We climb out on the bank on our side of the canal and watch to see whether they go into the house, for they might easily have been lying. Then we swim back. No one can cross the bridge without leave, so we will simply have to swim over tonight. We are full of excitement. We cannot last out without a drink, so we go to the canteen where there is beer and a kind of punch. We drink punch and tell one another lying tales of our experiences. Each man gladly believes the other man's story, only waiting impatiently till he can cap it with a taller one. Our hands are fidgety. We smoke countless cigarettes until Krop says, "We might as well take them a few cigarettes too." So we put some inside our caps to keep them. The sky turns apple green. There are 4 of us, but only 3 can go. We must shake off Tjaden, so ply him with rum and punch until he rocks. As it turns dark, we go to our billets, Tjaden in the centre. We are glowing and full of a lust for adventure. The little brunette is mine. We have settled all that. Tjaden drops on his sack of straw and snores. Once he wakes up and grins so craftily that we are alarmed and begin to think he is cheating, and that we have given him the punch to no purpose. Then he drops back again and sleeps on. We each get hold of a whole army loaf and wrap it up in newspaper. The cigarettes we put in too, as well as 3 good rations of liver sausage that were issued to us this evening. That makes a decent present. We stow the things carefully in our boots. We have to take them to protect our feet against treading on wire and broken glass on the other bank. As we must swim for it, we can take no other clothes, but it is not far and quite dark. We make off with our boots in our hands. Swiftly we slip into the water, lie on our backs and swim, holding the boots with their contents up over our heads. We climb out carefully on the opposite bank, take out the packages and put on our boots. We put the things under our arms, and so, all wet and naked, clothed only in our boots, we break into a trot. We find the house at once. It lies among the trees. Lear trips over a root and skins his elbows. "No matter," he says gaily. The windows are shuttered. We slip round the house and try to peer through the cracks. Then we grow impatient. Suddenly, Krop hesitates. "What if there's a major with them?" "Then we just clear off," grins Lear. He can try to read our regimental numbers here, and smacks his behind. The door of the courtyard stands open. Our boots make a great clatter. The house door opens. A chink of light shines through, and a woman cries out in a scared voice. "Shh! Camarade, bon ami!" we say, and show our packages protestingly. The other 2 are now on the scene. The door opens and the light floods over us. They recognize us, and all 3 burst into laughter at our appearance. They rock and sway in the doorway. They laugh so much. How supple their movements are. "Un moment." They disappear and throw us bits of clothing which we gladly wrap round ourselves. Then we are allowed in. A small lamp burns in their room, which is warm and smells a little of perfume. We unwrap our parcels and hand them over to the women. Their eyes shine. It is obvious that they are hungry. Then we all become rather embarrassed. Leah makes the gestures of eating, and then they come to life again and bring out plates and knives and fall to on the food, and they hold up every slice of livered sausage and admire it before they eat it, and we sit proudly by. They overwhelm us with their chatter. We understand very little of it, but we listen, and the words sound friendly. No doubt we all look very young. The little brunette strokes my hair and says what all French women say. La guerre, grand malheur, pauvre garçon. I hold her arm tightly and press my lips into the palm of her hand. Her fingers close round my face. Close above me are her bewildering eyes, the soft brown of her skin and her red lips. Her mouth speaks words I do not understand, nor do I fully understand her eyes. They seem to say more than we anticipated when we came here. There are other rooms adjoining. In passing I see Lear. He has made a great hit with the blonde. He's an old hand at the game. But I'm lost in remoteness, in weakness, and in a passion to which I yield myself trustingly. My desires are strangely compounded of yearning and misery. I feel giddy. There is nothing here that a man can hold on to. We have left our boots at the door. They have given us slippers instead, and now nothing remains to recall for me the assurance and self-confidence of the soldier. No rifle, no belt, no tunic, no cap. I let myself drop into the unknown, come what may. Yet in spite of all, I feel somewhat afraid. The little brunette contracts her brows when she is thinking, but when she talks, they are still. And often sound does not quite become a word, but suffocates or floats away over me half-finished. An arch, a pathway, a comet. What have I known of it? What do I know of it? The words of this foreign tongue, that I hardly understand, they caress me to a quietness in which the room grows dim and dissolves in the half-light. Only the face above me lives and is clear. How various is a face! But an hour ago it was strange, and it is now touched with a tenderness that comes not from it, but from out of the night. The world and the blood, all these things seem to shine in it together. The objects in the room are touched by it and transformed. They become isolated, and I feel almost awed at the sight of my clear skin when the light of the lamp falls upon it, and the cool brown hand passes over it. How different this is from the conditions in the soldiers' brothels, to which we are allowed to go, and where we have to wait in long queues. I wish I never thought of them, but desire turns my mind to them involuntarily, and I'm afraid for it might be impossible ever to be free of them again. But then I feel the lips of the little brunette and press myself against them. My eyes close. I want it all to fall from me. War and terror and grossness, in order to awaken young and happy. I think of the picture of the girl on the poster, and for a moment believe that my life depends on winning her, and if I press ever deeper into the arms that embrace me, perhaps a miracle may happen. So after a time we find ourselves reassembled again. Lear is in high spirits. We pull on our boots and take our leave warmly. The night air cools our hot bodies. The rustling poplars loom large in the darkness. The moon floats in the heavens and in the waters of the canal. We do not run. We walk beside one another with long strides. That was worth a ration loaf, says Lear. I cannot trust myself to speak. I am not in the least happy. Then we hear footsteps and dodge behind a shrub. The steps come nearer, close by us. We see a naked soldier, in boots, just like ourselves. He has a package under his arm, and gallops onward. It is Tjarden, in full course. He has disappeared already. We laugh. In the morning, he will curse us. Unobserved, we arrive again at our sacks of straw. I am called to the orderly room. The company commander gives me a leave pass and a travel pass and wishes me a good journey. I look to see how much leave I have got. 17 days, 14 days leave, and 3 days for travelling. It is not enough, and I ask whether I cannot have 5 days for travelling. Bertink points to my pass. There I see that I am not to return to the front immediately. After my leave, I have to report for a course of training to a camp on the moors. The others envy me. Kat gives me good advice and tells me I ought to try to get a base job. If you're smart, you'll hang on to it. I would rather not have gone for another 8 days. We are to stay here that much longer, and it is good here. Naturally, I have to stand the others' drinks at the canteen. We are all a little bit drunk. I become gloomy. I will be away for 6 weeks. That is lucky, of course. But what may happen before I get back? Shall I meet all these fellows again? Already Haya and Kemmerich have gone. Who will the next be? As we drink, I look at each of them in turn. Albert sits beside me and smokes. He is cheerful. We have always been together. Opposite squats Kat, with his drooping shoulders, his broad thumb, and calm voice. Muller with the projecting teeth and the booming laugh. Tjaden with his mousy eyes. Lear, who has grown a full beard and looks at least 40. Over us hangs a dense cloud of smoke. Where would a soldier be without tobacco? The canteen is his refuge, and beer is far more than a drink. It is a token that a man can move his limbs and stretch in safety. We do it ceremonially. We stretch our legs out in front of us and spit deliberately. That is the only way. How it all rises up before a man when he is going away the next morning. At night we go again to the other side of the canal. I'm almost afraid to tell the little brunette that I'm going away, and when I return we will be far from here. We will never see one another again. But she merely nods and takes no special notice. At first I am at a loss to understand. Then it suddenly dawns on me. Yes, Lear is right. If I were going up to the front, then she would have called me again, pauvre garçon. But merely going on leave, she does not want to hear about that. That is not nearly so interesting. May she go to the devil with her chattering talk. A man dreams of a miracle and wakes up to loaves of bread. Next morning, after I have been deloused, I go to the railhead. Albert and Kat come with me. At the halt we learn that it will be a couple of hours yet before the train leaves. The other two have to go back to duty. We take leave of one another. Good luck, Kat. Good luck, Albert. They go off and wave once or twice. Their figures dwindle. I know their every step and movement. I would recognize them at any distance. Then they disappear. I sit down on my pack and wait. Suddenly, I become filled with a consuming impatience to be gone. I lie down on many a station platform. I stand before many a soup kitchen. I squat on many a bench. Then at last the landscape becomes disturbing, mysterious, and familiar. It glides past the western windows with its villages, their thatched roofs like caps, pulled over the whitewashed, half-timbered houses, its cornfields gleaming like mother-of-pearl in the slanting light, its orchards, its barns and old lime trees. The names of the stations begin to take on meaning, and my heart trembles. The train stamps and stamps onward. I stand at the window and hold on to the frame. These names mark the boundaries of my youth. Smooth meadows, fields, farmyards. A solitary team moves against the skyline along the road that runs parallel to the horizon. A barrier before which peasants stand waiting, girls waving, children playing on the embankment. Roads leading into the country, smooth roads without artillery. It is evening, and if the train did not rattle, I should cry out. The plain unfolds itself. In the distance, the soft, blue silhouette of the mountain ranges begins to appear. I recognize the characteristic outline of the Dolbenberg, a jagged comb springing up precipitously from the limits of the forests. Behind it should lie the town. But now, the sun streams through the world, dissolving everything in its golden red light. The train swings round one curve and then another. For away, in a long line, one behind the other, stand the poplars, unsubstantial, swaying and dark, fashioned out of shadow, light, and desire. The field swings round as the train encircles it, and the intervals between the trees diminish. The trees become a block, and for a moment I see one only. Then they reappear from behind the foremost tree and stand out a long line against the sky until they are hidden by the first houses. A street crossing. I stand by the window. I cannot drag myself away. The others put their baggage ready for getting out. I repeat to myself the name of the street that we cross over, Bremerstrasse, Bremerstrasse. Below there are cyclists, lorries, men. It is a grey street and a grey subway. It affects me as though it were my mother. Then the train stops, and there is the station with noise and cries and signboards. I pick up my pack and fasten the straps. I take my rifle in my hand and stumble down the steps. On the platform I look round. I know no one among all the people hurrying to and fro. A Red Cross sister offers me something to drink. I turn away. She smiles at me too foolishly, so obsessed with her own importance. "Just look, I am giving a soldier coffee." She calls me comrade, but I will have none of it. Outside, in front of the station, the stream roars alongside the street. It rushes foaming from the sluices of the mill bridge. There stands the old square watchtower, in front of it the great mottled lime tree, and behind it the evening. Here we have often sat, how long ago it is. We have passed over this bridge and breathed the cool, acid smell of the stagnant water. We have leaned over the still water on this side of the lock, where the green creepers and weeds hang from the piles of the bridge. And on hot days, we rejoiced in the spouting foam on the other side of the lock, and told tales about our school teachers. I pass over the bridge. I look right and left. The water is as full of weeds as ever, and it still shoots over in gleaming arches. In the tower building, laundresses still stand with bare arms as they used to over the clean linen, and the heat from the ironing pours out through the open windows. Dogs trot along the narrow street. Before the doors of the houses, people stand and follow me with their gaze as I pass by, dirty and heavy laden. In this confectioner's we used to eat ices, and there we learned to smoke cigarettes. Walking down the street, I know every shop, the grocer's, the chemist's, the baker's. Then at last I stand before the brown door with its worn latch, and my hand grows heavy. I open the door, and a strange coolness comes out to meet me. My eyes are dim. The stairs creak under my boots. Upstairs a door rattles. Someone is looking over the railing. It is the kitchen door that was opened. They are cooking potato cakes. The house reeks of it. And today, of course, is Saturday. That will be my sister leaning over. For a moment I am shy and lower my head. Then I take off my helmet and look up. Yes, it is my eldest sister. "Paul!" she cries. "Paul!" I nod. My pack bumps against the banisters. My rifle is so heavy. She pulls a door open and calls, "Mother! Mother! Paul is here!" I can go no further. "Mother! Mother! Paul is here!" I lean against the wall and grip my helmet and rifle. I hold them as tight as I can, but I cannot take another step. The staircase fades before my eyes. I support myself with the butt of my rifle against my feet and clench my teeth fiercely. But I cannot speak a word. My sister's call has made me powerless. I can do nothing. I struggle to make myself laugh, to speak, but no word comes. And so I stand on the steps, miserable, helpless, paralyzed, and against my will the tears run down my cheeks. My sister comes back and says, "Why, what is the matter?" Then I pull myself together and stagger onto the landing. I lean my rifle in a corner. I set my pack against the wall, place my helmet on it, and fling down my equipment and baggage. Then I say fiercely, "Bring me a handkerchief." She gives me one from the cupboard and I dry my face. Above me on the wall hangs the glass case with the coloured butterflies that once I collected. Now I hear my mother's voice. It comes from the bedroom. Is she in bed? I ask my sister. She is ill, she replies. I go into her, give her my hand, and say as calmly as I can, Here I am, Mother. She lies still in the dim light. Then she asks anxiously, Are you wounded? And I feel her searching glance. No, I have got leave. My mother is very pale. I'm afraid to make a light. Here I lie now, says she, and cry, instead of being glad. Are you sick, Mother? I ask. I'm going to get up a little today, she says, and turns to my sister, who is continually running to the kitchen to watch that the food does not burn. And put out that jar of preserved whortleberries. You like that, don't you? She asks me. Yes, Mother. I haven't had any for a long time. We might almost have known you were coming, laughs my sister. There is just your favourite dish, potato cakes, and even whortleberries to go with them too. And it is Saturday, I add. Sit here beside me, says my mother. She looks at me. Her hands are white and sickly and frail compared with mine. We say very little, and I am thankful that she asks nothing. What ought I to say? Everything I could have wished for has happened. I have come out of it safely, and sit here beside her. And in the kitchen stands my sister preparing supper and singing. Dear boy, says my mother softly. We were never very demonstrative in our family. Poor folk who toil and are full of cares are not so. It is not their way to protest what they already know. When my mother says to me, Dear boy, it means much more than when another uses it. I know well enough that the jar of whortleberries is the only one they have had for months, and that she has kept it for me, and the somewhat stale cakes that she gives me too. She must have got them cheap sometime and put them all by for me. I sit by her bed, and through the window the chestnut trees in the beer garden opposite glow in brown and gold. I breathe deeply and say over to myself, You are at home. You are at home. But a sense of strangeness will not leave me. I cannot feel at home amongst these things. There is my mother, there is my sister, there my case of butterflies, and there the mahogany piano, but I am not myself there. There is a distance, a veil between us. I go and fetch my pack to the bedside and turn out the things I have brought. A whole Edamer cheese that Cat provided me with, 2 loaves of army bread, 3/4 of a pound of butter, 2 tins of livered sausage, a pound of dripping, and a little bag of rice. I suppose you can make some use of that? They nod. Is it pretty bad for food here? I inquire. Yes, there's not much. Do you get enough out there? I smile and point to the things I have brought. Not always quite as much as that, of course, but we fare reasonably well. Erna takes away the food. Suddenly my mother seizes hold of my hand and asks falteringly, Was it very bad out there, Paul? Mother, what should I answer to that? You would not understand. You could never realize it, and you never shall realize it. Was it bad, you ask? You, Mother, I shake my head and say, No, Mother, not so very. There are always a lot of us together, so it isn't so bad. Yes, but Heinrich Bredemeyer was here just lately and said it was terrible out there now, with the gas and all the rest of it. It is my mother who says that. She says, with the gas and all the rest of it. She does not know what she is saying. She is merely anxious for me. Should I tell her how we once found 3 enemy trenches with their garrison all stiff as though stricken with apoplexy? Against the parapet in the dugouts just where they were, the men stood and lay about with blue faces, dead. No, Mother, that's only talk, I answer. There's not very much in what Bredemeyer says. You see, for instance, I'm well and fit. Before my mother's tremulous anxiety, I recover my composure. Now I can walk about and talk and answer questions without fear of having suddenly to lean against the wall because the world turns soft as rubber and my veins become brimstone. My mother wants to get up, so I go for a while to my sister in the kitchen. What is the matter with her? I ask. She shrugs her shoulders. She has been in bed some months now, but we did not want to write and tell you. Several doctors have been to see her. One of them said it is probably cancer again. Nice. I go to the district commandant to report myself. Slowly I wander through the streets. Occasionally someone speaks to me. I do not delay long, for I have little inclination to talk. On my way back from the barracks, a loud voice calls out to me. Still lost in thought, I turn round and find myself confronted by a major. "Can't you salute?" he blusters. "Sorry, Major," I say in embarrassment. "I didn't notice you." "Don't you know how to speak properly?" he roars. I would like to hit him in the face, but control myself, for my leave depends on it. I click my heels and say, "I did not see you, Herr Major." "Then keep your eyes open," he snorts. "What is your name?" I give it. His fat red face is furious. "What regiment?" I give him full particulars. Even yet he has not had enough. "Where are you quartered?" But I have had more than enough and say, "Between Langmark and Bixschoote." "Eh?" he asks, a bit stupefied. I explain to him that I arrived on leave only an hour or two since, thinking that he would then trot along. But not at all. He gets even more furious. "You think you can bring your frontline manners here, what? Well, we don't stand for that sort of thing. Thank God we have discipline here." 20 paces backwards, double march," he commands. I am mad with rage, but I cannot say anything to him. He could put me under arrest if he liked. So I double back and then march up to him. 6 paces from him, I spring to a stiff salute and maintain it until I am 6 paces beyond him. He calls me back again and affably gives me to understand that for once he is pleased to put mercy before justice. I pretend to be duly grateful. "Now, dismiss," he says. I turn about smartly and march off. That ruins the evening for me. I go back home and throw my uniform into a corner. I had intended to change it in any case. Then I take out my civilian clothes from the wardrobe and put them on. I feel awkward. The suit is rather tight and short. I've grown in the army. Collar and tie give me some trouble. In the end, my sister ties the bow for me. But how light the suit is, it feels as though I had nothing on but a shirt and underpants. I look at myself in the glass. It is a strange sight. A sunburnt, overgrown candidate for confirmation gazes at me in astonishment. My mother is pleased to see me wearing civilian clothes. It makes me less strange to her. But my father would rather I kept my uniform on, so that he could take me to visit his acquaintances. But I refuse. It is pleasant to sit quietly somewhere, in the beer garden for example, under the chestnuts by the skittle alley. The leaves fall down on the table and on the ground, only a few, the first. A glass of beer stands in front of me. I've learned to drink in the army. The glass is half empty, but there are a few good swigs ahead of me, and besides I can always order a second and a third if I wish to. There are no bugles and no bombardments. The children of the house play in the skittle alley, and the dog rests his head against my knee. The sky is blue. Between the leaves of the chestnuts rises the green spire of St. Margaret's Church. This is good. I like it. But I cannot get on with the people. My mother is the only one who asks no questions. Not so my father. He wants me to tell him about the front. He is curious in a way that I find stupid and distressing. I no longer have any real contact with him. There is nothing he likes more than just hearing about it. I realize he does not know that a man cannot talk of such things. I would do it willingly, but it is too dangerous for me to put these things into words. I am afraid they might then become gigantic and I be no longer able to master them. What would become of us if everything that happens out there were quite clear to us? So I confine myself to telling him a few amusing things. But he wants to know whether I have ever had a hand-to-hand fight. I say no, and get up and go out. But that does not mend matters. After I have been startled a couple of times in the street by the screaming of the tram cars, which resembles the shriek of a shell coming straight for one, somebody taps me on the shoulder. It is my German master, and he fastens on me with the usual question. "Well, how are things out there?" "Terrible, terrible, eh?" Yes, it is dreadful, but we must carry on. And after all, you do at least get decent food out there, so I hear. You look well, Paul, and fit. Naturally, it's worse here. Naturally. The best for our soldiers every time, that goes without saying. He drags me along to a table with a lot of others. They welcome me. A headmaster shakes hands with me and says, "So you come from the front? What's the spirit like out there? Excellent, eh?" Excellent. I explain that no one would be sorry to be back home. He laughs uproariously. I can well believe it, but first you have to give the froggies a good hiding. Do you smoke? Here, try one. Waiter, bring a beer as well for our young warrior. Unfortunately, I have accepted the cigar, so I have to remain, and they are all so dripping with goodwill that it is impossible to object. All the same, I feel annoyed and smoke like a chimney as hard as I can. In order to make at least some show of appreciation, I toss off the beer in one gulp. Immediately a second is ordered. People know how much they are indebted to the soldiers. They argue about what we ought to annex. The headmaster with the steel watch chain wants to have at least the whole of Belgium, the coal areas of France, and a slice of Russia. He produces reasons why we must have them, and is quite inflexible until at last the others give in to him. Then he begins to expound just whereabouts in France the breakthrough must come, and turns to me. Now, shove ahead a bit out there with your everlasting trench warfare. Smash through the Johnnies and then there will be peace. I reply that in our opinion, a breakthrough may not be possible. The enemy may have too many reserves. Besides, the war may be rather different from what people think. He dismisses the idea loftily and informs me I know nothing about it. The details, yes, says he, but this relates to the whole, and of that you are not able to judge. You see only your little sector, and so cannot have any general survey. You do your duty, you risk your lives, that deserves the highest honour. Every man of you ought to have the Iron Cross. But first of all the enemy line must be broken through in Flanders, and then rolled up from the top. He blows his nose and wipes his beard. Completely rolled up they must be, from the top to the bottom, and then to Paris. I would like to know just how he pictures it to himself, and pour the third glass of beer into me. Immediately he orders another, but I break away. He stuffs a few more cigars into my pocket and sends me off with a friendly slap. All of the best. I hope we will soon hear something worthwhile from you. I imagined leave would be different from this. Indeed, it was different a year ago. It is I, of course, that have changed in the interval. There lies a gulf between that time and today. At that time I still knew nothing about the war. We had only been in quiet sectors. But now I see that I have been crushed without knowing it. I find I do not belong here anymore. It is a foreign world. Some of these people ask questions, some ask no questions. But one can see that the latter are proud of themselves for their silence. They often say with a wise air that these things cannot be talked about. They plume themselves on it. I prefer to be alone so that no one troubles me. For they all come back to the same thing, how badly it goes and how well it goes. One thinks it is this way, another that, and yet they are always absorbed in the things that go to make up their existence. Formerly I lived in just the same way myself, but now I feel no contact here. They talk too much for me. They have worries, aims, desires that I cannot comprehend. I often sit with one of them in the little beer garden and try to explain to him that this is really the only thing. Just to sit quietly, like this. They understand, of course, they agree, they may even feel it so too. But only with words. Only with words, yes, that is it. They feel it. But always with only half of themselves. The rest of their being is taken up with other things. They are so divided in themselves that none feels it with his whole essence. I cannot even say myself exactly what I mean. When I see them here, in their rooms, in their offices, about their occupations, I feel an irresistible attraction in it. I would like to be here too and forget the war. But also it repels me. It is so narrow. How can that fill a man's life? He ought to smash it to bits, How can they do it? While out at the front the splinters are whining over the shell holes and the star shells go up, the wounded are carried back on waterproof sheets, and comrades crouch in the trenches. They are different men here, men I cannot properly understand, whom I envy and despise. I must think of Kat and Albert and Müller and Tjaden. What will they be doing? No doubt they are sitting in the canteen, or perhaps swimming. Soon they will have to go up to the front line again. In my room behind the table stands a brown leather sofa. I sit down on it. On the walls are pinned countless pictures that I once used to cut out of the newspapers. In between are drawings and postcards that have pleased me. In the corner is a small iron stove. Against the wall opposite stand the bookshelves with my books. I used to live in this room before I was a soldier. The books I bought gradually with the money I earned by coaching. Many of them are second-hand, all the classics, for example. One volume in blue cloth boards cost 1 mark, 20 pfennig. I bought them complete because it was thoroughgoing. I did not trust the editors of selections to choose all the best. So I purchased only collected works. I read most of them with laudable zeal, but few of them really appealed to me. I preferred the other books, the moderns, which were, of course, much dearer. A few I came by not quite honestly. I borrowed and did not return them because I did not want to part with them. One shelf is filled with schoolbooks. They are not so well cared for, they are badly thumbed, and pages have been torn out for certain purposes. Then below are periodicals, papers, and letters all jammed in together with drawings and rough sketches. I want to think myself back into that time. It is still in the room. I feel it at once. The walls have preserved it. My hands rest on the arms of the sofa. Now I make myself at home and draw up my legs so that I sit comfortably in the corner, in the arms of the sofa. The little window is open. Through it I see the familiar picture of the street, with the rising spire of the church at the end. There are a couple of flowers on the table, pen holders, a shell as a paperweight, the inkwell. Here nothing is changed. It will be like this too if I am lucky, when the war is over and I come back here for good. I will sit here just like this and look at my room and wait. I feel excited, but I do not want to be, for that is not right. I want that quiet rapture again. I want to feel the same powerful, nameless urge that I used to feel when I turned to my books. The breath of desire that then arose from the coloured backs of the books shall fill me again, melt the heavy, dead lump of lead that lies somewhere in me and waken again the impatience of the future. The quick joy in the world of thought, it shall bring back again the lost eagerness of my youth. I sit and wait. It occurs to me that I must go and see Kemmerich's mother. I might visit Mittelstadt too. He should be at the barracks. I look out of the window. Beyond the picture of the sunlit street appears a range of hills, distant and light. It changes to a clear day in autumn, and I sit by the fire with Kat and Albert, and eat potatoes baked in their skins. But I do not want to think of that. I sweep it away. The room shall speak. It must catch me up and hold me. I want to feel that I belong here. I want to hearken and know when I go back to the front that the war will sink down, be drowned utterly in the great homecoming tide. Know that it will then be past forever, and not gnaw us continually, that it will have none but an outward power over us.